Hey everyone, welcome back to our movie news. Now, I never really wanted to make this video, but I have been asked by multiple people on multiple platforms to make a video on my thoughts on Snyder's latest comments about Batman, and so I thought I'll make one video about this and leave it at that. And I don't get why there is so much outrage for a guy that doesn't work for the company anymore. It's not like DC has hired him for the latest Batman movie or he's going to be leading the franchise for the next 10 years. He literally hasn't been hired to make a movie for the company since 2017. Yes, he finished the Snyder Cut in 2021, but Warner Brothers didn't want him back to make more. So what is all the fuss about? Well, on Joe Rogan's podcast, he was talking about how to some comic book fans, these stories are like a religion, and he talks about Batman not being allowed to kill. And he said, that's a lifestyle choice for a lot of people. It's not like if I made a romantic comedy. The people who love comic book movies, I love that they feel this passionately. In no way would I criticize that because I live the same life. For those guys, it's not just a movie, and so on some level, you have to acknowledge that this is their religion, and they feel strongly about it. It's my religion too. Snyder said that he tends to get in trouble with comic book fans because I do take a deconstructionist point of view. Because I care, I want to take superheroes apart. People are always like, Batman can't kill, so Batman can't kill as canon, and I'm like, okay, well the first thing I want to do when you say that is I want to see what happens. Snyder continued, and they go, well, don't put him in that situation where he has to kill someone. I'm like, well, that's just like you're protecting your god in a weird way, right? You're making your god irrelevant. So that is what he had to say on both topics, and of course, then the headlines and outrage rolled in, and then the Snyder fans defended him, but was the outrage valid? Well, let's break this down a bit more. In the first paragraph, he talks more specifically about these movies being like a religion to people, including himself. And what I want to say about that is that I agree. I've never been religious. I hope there is a higher power out there, but I've never followed a religion. But the closest thing to a religion for me has been these comic book heroes. These almighty, powerful, godlike beings teaching me lessons throughout my life, teaching me right from wrong and how to be a better person. And I've talked to others who have had similar connections to these comic book characters. So I know I'm not alone in that mindset, so I agree with him. To a lot of people, these movies are a religion to them, and the way people react, defend, or hate on his takes on these characters shows their deep connections to these characters. Because at the end of the day, these are just made-up heroes in a comic book. But the way people act around these characters, and the way people will defend or attack people's takes on these characters is very reminiscent of how someone may defend their own religion. If you insulted or challenged a religious being, you would have a lot of people from that religious group telling you what you did was wrong, and they would be very defensive, even possibly saying that you don't understand the religion. I see no difference between that and how people act around comic book movies. I've seen the way people have reacted to his words from this very podcast, and it was as if he insulted a religious being. Thousands of people going after him for making a comment about a made-up character from a comic book. And that isn't an insult, it's just an observation. Superheroes are the closest thing I have to religion. I grew up learning a lot of my morals from the best superheroes around, and I've always looked up to them. And when someone insults them or challenges them in a way I don't like, I get defensive, like most fans do. And Snyder isn't insulting people by saying it's like a religion to some. He even admits that he treats it like that himself. But of course, people take his words out of context and use small sections of his quotes to make clickable titles or posts, which I will talk about later because I really hate how the media is using snippets of his quotes to fuel engagement. But back to Snyder's actual quotes. He then goes on to say he tends to get in trouble with comic book fans because he does take a deconstructivist viewpoint because he cares about them and he wants to take superheroes apart. And again, for this, I have no issue. We've seen the same story of Batman and Superman over and over again. If not in movies, then in comics or animation. We've seen the whole origin story and the normal take on these heroes. Snyder did something new and I liked it. For me, it was a refreshing take and something new. I have seen so many versions of Batman that follow the same path, so it was nice to see a version where it went a little darker. And it is comic accurate because he basically adapted a lot of things from the Dark Knight Returns story. If you don't like that version, then that is completely fine. fine, I've got no issues with that. I'd recommend to go watch another version that you like. I see so many people acting as if they are forced to watch Snyder's version of Batman. You don't. There have been so many different takes on Batman before Snyder made his movie, and there will be so many after it too. Go watch the Batman movies you love and be excited for what DC is making with Batman next. The outrage I see on social media is as if Snyder is still working for DC and making the next DC Batman film. But on to his final quote. People are always like, Batman can't kill, so Batman can't kill is canon. And I'm like, okay, well the first thing I want to do when you say that is I want to see what happens. And they go, well don't put him in a situation where he has to kill someone. And I'm like, well that's just like you're protecting your god in a weird way, right? You're making your god irrelevant. And this plays into his deconstructivist view on superheroes. He wants to break them down and test their morals in the hardest situations, and I love that. We've seen them all be the perfect good guys and they always win. So I like that for once, we see a version of these heroes where they are tested to their limits in the most difficult situations. I don't want to see that every time because I think firstly you will move further and further away from the core of that character, but also because it will just get repetitive. I appreciated Snyder's take because it was a breath of fresh air. We've seen Batman have his no-kill rule, we've seen his origin story, but let's see what happens if he somehow lost his way. And that's what Snyder did. He challenged the character in a way no one had ever done before. And you know what happened? Yeah, he killed a bunch of bad guys, but not only did this happen after being Batman for 20 years, but he also came back from that darkness after being inspired by Superman, showing that even though he lost his way, he still found his way back. He had a redemption arc, and you know what? He's the only live-action Batman who was killed for the purpose of the story. Fan favorites like Keaton and Bale have both killed multiple people in their movies, but the movies willingly ignore it and still push the idea that he has a no-kill rule. I love those movies, but they allowed Batman to kill for humor, or to kill for cool explosions, or just because they ignored it. Snyder decided to openly welcome that idea of Batman killing and used it for a story purpose. He actually embraced it and used it as a storyline rather than claiming he had a no-kill rule and just lazily killed random thugs hoping the audience wouldn't notice. So if anything for me, I have a lot of respect and admiration for this take on Batman because it actually created a fresh take on the character and welcomed Batman killing to create a new character arc we hadn't seen from other takes on Batman. If you didn't like the execution of Snyder's take, then that's a different thing, and I completely understand that. We can't all like the same movies and shouldn't expect everyone to feel the same way. I'm just focusing on the specifics of Snyder's Batman and other people's versions of Batman. When people said Batman has a no-kill rule, Snyder said, people are always like, Batman can't kill, so Batman can't kill is canon. And I'm like, okay, well the first thing I want to do when you say that is I want to see what happens. And they go, well don't put him in a situation where he has to kill someone. And I'm like, well that's just like you're protecting your god in a weird way, right? You're making your god irrelevant. And I completely get what he is saying. He says it in quite a blunt and harsh way, but I get what he means. He likes breaking these heroes down to test their limits, and fans asking directors or storytellers to not put their heroes in those difficult situations is protecting those characters in a weird way, and in a way, it does make them feel irrelevant. If you can't challenge these heroes in any movie, then doesn't that make it just a bit repetitive? Because now all you want to see is the perfect version of the character where they never lose and never have their morals challenged. And if you want that, that's fine. That's not an issue. There are many live action and comic book versions of Batman where that is the case. But why can't we have one where that isn't the case? Now he is referring to Batman as a god to show how some people treat superheroes as a religion, and I think that makes sense. And I do think that people are protecting these characters in a weird way too. Why can't we put these heroes in a position that challenges their morals or codes every now and then? And not every time, but why not every now and then we see what they would do in this difficult situation or that difficult situation? The Dark Knight Returns has a situation where a thug has a kid at gunpoint and threatens Batman, saying he will kill her. Batman believes him and shoots the thug and saves the kid. That is a fascinating situation where Batman has to compromise his morals to save a kid, and Snyder took a lot of inspiration from that moment and put it into Batman v Superman. What some fans are asking for is to not have Batman in a situation like that at all, because it challenges their ideals of Batman. It goes against against what they are comfortable with, because now they are thinking, well, it is so ingrained into my mind that Batman has a no-kill rule that now he is in this situation where he either breaks that rule and saves the person, or sticks with his rule and lets that person die. And that challenges the moral code and makes that person feel uncomfortable. So instead of making Batman have to have a difficult scenario like that, they would rather have a situation where Batman can somehow defeat the thug without killing him and still save the person. But that isn't always going to be the case. And I'm not saying every movie or take has to have Batman in a situation like that, but I think every now and then it is so fascinating to see what Batman would do in a situation like that. And to me, that is one of the many aspects of Batman that I find so interesting. I hear people saying Snyder's Batman isn't Batman because he kills, but that's the whole point of the story. We're seeing a Batman if he lost his way, where he lost his code, and then by the end of the movie, he realizes his mistakes and is inspired by Superman. There are so many takes on Batman and so many movies about Batman. If you don't like Snyder's version, then just don't watch it. I don't like Batman and Robin, so I don't watch it. I don't spend hours of my life talking about why I don't like it on social media. And the outrage people have had for Snyder's latest comments are as if he is in charge of DC and the next Batman movie we are getting will be directed by him. You do realize Batman v Superman came out 8 years ago, and since then we have had Keaton return and Pattinson's first solo movie, and now the DCEU is being rebooted, so we will have yet another version of Batman in the DCU. People are reacting to Snyder's latest words as if none of that has happened and Snyder is still in charge. And I think this is a huge overreaction, and I really don't get the outrage. There is no one definitive story for Batman, and there is literally a version of Batman from the comics where he uses guns and kills. And I have no issue if you don't like that take on Batman and hate Snyder's take on Batman and his DC films in general. That is fine. Once again, I have no issue with that. I just simply do not understand why there is so much outrage when the guy doesn't even work for DC anymore. I know DCU news has been slow for the past week, but why are people so obsessed with Snyder's words on a movie that came out 8 years ago and has no signs of having a sequel? He's not threatening the future of DC. And what is even worse is that people are taking his words out of context to get clicks and cause more outrage. Like IGN here, Zack Snyder says DC is making Batman irrelevant if he can't kill. And of course, the only part of that statement that has quotation marks surrounding it is the word irrelevant, and the rest is their assumption. What Snyder actually said was that if there are no stories where Batman can be put in a situation where he has to kill, then he thinks the character becomes irrelevant because there is no challenge of his morals. But what IGN twists his comments into is claiming that he thinks DC is making Batman irrelevant by not letting him kill at all, implying he has no understanding of the comics whatsoever and causes that typical outrage you see in the comments. And most people just read the headline and not the actual quotes, which is what causes a huge lack of understanding in what he actually said. I keep on saying it and saying it and saying it, but I'll say it one more time. If you don't like Batman killing, then that is fine. There are tons of movies where Batman says he has no kill rule. This is just one movie out of many that decided to do something different, and for me, it worked. I'm just saying how I feel, and for me, I'd much rather it if the movie actually acknowledges Batman killing and utilizes it for the story, rather than claiming he has a no-kill rule, but then shows him blatantly killing people throughout the movie. And I agree with Snyder when he says people treat these characters like it's a religion. The very reaction to Snyder's latest words literally proves that. And he's not saying that as an insult, but what he said really doesn't matter anyway. It has no impact on the future of DC. He is working on Rebel Moon with Netflix, far away from DC and what they are doing with the DCU. He was on a podcast talking about his past movies, so he did that. The DCU is moving far away from Snyder's take, and so I don't understand all these silly complaints. If his movie came out last year and a new Batman movie from him was coming out next year, then I would get the outrage just purely because he would be making a new DC film that would impact people right now. But he literally hasn't made a brand new DC film since 2017, and the franchise is being rebooted. The way I see it, I think Batman should kill if the story and scenario needs him to. Otherwise, don't kill at all. And don't do what Keaton or Bale did either. Don't let him kill for the sake of entertainment and then act like it didn't happen. Either use it for the story or don't let it happen at all. But that's all I will say on the matter. Make sure to let me know your thoughts on Snyder's comments in the comments below. But that is all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe and turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. I hope to see you here again soon, so until then, have a great day. Bye!